Hello, everyone. My name is Cat Oriel with Forbes Breaking News, and today I'm here with Congresswoman-elect Yassamin Ansari. Congresswoman-elect, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, so congratulations on your win. And for those that might be unfamiliar with your background, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to pursue a career in public service?
Wow, definitely. My name is Yassamin Ansari. I am the proud daughter of two immigrants. I was born in Seattle. I was raised in Arizona, and I actually got involved in politics at a pretty young age. I was a junior in high school when Barack Obama ran for president the first time, and a combination of growing up with parents who fled their country as a result of politics and um, a revolution in their country. I was always taught to never take democracy for granted. So growing up, we always talked about politics at the dinner table. But I was very inspired by Barack Obama and his vision for the country. So I started volunteering with the Arizona Democratic Party and knew that I was very interested in pursuing a career in public service, even at that age. I later went to Stanford and Cambridge. I was very focused on international relations and security studies, and then spent my career working on climate policy. I worked for the former and the current UN Secretary General, helped to deliver the Paris Climate Agreement, and then also ran multiple global climate summits focused on decarbonizing different sectors. And following the first Trump election, was very motivated to fight back between Donald Trump pulling out of the Paris Agreement and being a climate change denier to his horrific policies against immigrants of all backgrounds. I decided to move back home to Arizona to get more involved domestically. And that's when I ran for the Phoenix City Council. So I was elected and served as a councilwoman in my current congressional district, represented Southwest Phoenix, and did a lot of work on issues from transportation policy and transportation electrification in particular to zoning reform and addressing homelessness, to try to protecting reproductive rights when Roe v. Wade was overturned. So I've always spent my life in public service, and I'm really excited now for this next step and journey in Congress.
Given your experience and just your background as a lifelong Arizonan, I want to get your takeaways on the election and how you've seen Arizona change politically. It was a crucial swing state in this election. President-elect Trump won in 2016, lost it in 2020 to President Biden, but then won it again this year. Why do you think he was able to have success there this time around?
I think that it's important to look at the global context when it comes to the election. Since the pandemic, no country that's part of the OECD, which stands for the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, encompasses 38 member countries around the world. None of those incumbents have been successful in reelection. Obviously, we saw significant inflation post-pandemic, people struggling economically, a lot of consolidation of power amongst billionaires throughout the world, and especially in the United States. So it's tough. And I think that one takeaway I have from the election for sure is that we need to be meeting people where they are when it comes to communication. And there are so many modes of communication now. And many people don't get their information from traditional sources of media. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're communicating with people more effectively. But Arizona is also a tough state. We're a border state, historically a very red state, but typically more moderate. And we have a lot of organizing to do, and we'll continue to do that.
I see you're very active on social media. Speaking of communications, how do you plan on using social media to communicate with constituents?
We're always learning. Obviously I work hard to be active on various platforms. I grew up with social media, so it's a part of the fabric of my daily life, whether that's posting stories on Instagram, trying to do more TikToks and communicate with folks that way. And there's so many new platforms as well. I've always also had a very young team, and probably will have a young team in my congressional office as well. So we're open to any ideas and want to make sure that whether it's a podcast, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, YouTube, we're communicating everything that we're doing in my office and the policies that we're pursuing as effectively as possible.
Seems like the election just happened, but things have been quickly going underway already. You've already gone through a week or so of orientation. How's that been going so far? I saw that you won Dem freshman class president. Congratulations on that election. So, what exactly do you plan to do in that role?
Thank you. Yeah, we just wrapped up almost 2 full weeks of new member orientation. It was really great. First of all, I love my freshman class. It's a cohort of 33 Democrats. We have doctors, we have national security experts, we have a lot of historic firsts in our class. So for me personally, it was very encouraging and inspiring after a really tough general election to be able to come into Congress with this class. I was really honored that my colleagues entrusted me by electing me as freshman class president. A huge part of the role is really bringing people together, spending the next 2 years. It's going to be very tough. And, I want to make sure that each and every member of our class feels immensely supported in their roles, intend to, have a lot of meaningful policy discussions as well. So whether that's dinners with experts on immigration or the economy to really learning from each other as well. Like within the class, we have so many experts and want to take that on. Also, talking about the issue of communications, I want to make sure that each and every person feels well equipped to communicate everything that they're doing. So, we're going to be bringing in some experts on both traditional and non traditional communications in that realm. And then, we are in the minority party and bipartisan relationships are going to be important. So I intend to work with my Republican counterpart to organize opportunities for us to get to know each other as well.
Speaking of that, how do you think you will navigate being a Democrat in the House Republican majority, and how will you work across party lines to pass legislation?
Look, I think I see my role now as, kind of two parts. So one important piece is going to be defending um, important policies that have been passed, important institutions, democratic institutions from the most extreme attacks from the Trump administration. So, when it comes to his commitment of mass deportations, like I will not stand for that. I will be doing everything in my power to make sure that we protect communities in Arizona's third district, which is a majority Latino district, 64 languages spoken. I mean, my district will be impacted by this. And I'm already working with lawyers and with the nonprofit community to make sure we are prepared to defend residents to the extent possible. Um, Also, Arizona is ranked one of the worst nationwide for education. I'm very worried about threats to the Department of Education and plans that the administration has there. So I can list a number of things that are going to be important to defend. However, I also take this role very seriously. I will do my part to build relationships across the aisle and get things done. Housing is an issue that is prevalent across the country, but very much affects Phoenix. We are in a housing shortage. We've seen rents go up. We've seen the cost of homes for purchase go up and become increasingly unaffordable. I find housing policy to be a bipartisan issue. Just yesterday, a YIMBY caucus, yes, in my backyard caucus, was created on a bipartisan basis, um, really with one goal in mind, and that's to increase housing supply across the country to bring down costs. Intend to join that caucus and get things done on the issue of housing affordability. So I will do everything I can. Already, have met many of my Republican counterparts through the orientation process and will continue to do so. But I hope we all have one goal in mind, and that's to improve the lives of the American people.
Well, you mentioned coming off of that tough election cycle and your willingness to work across the aisle. And usually, the big news of the week from freshman orientation is the office suite lottery. But one of the biggest stories this week was Rep. Nancy Mace, House Republicans instating a transgender bathroom ban, which of course is an apparent target against the incoming Rep. Sarah McBride of Delaware. And on Twitter, you've been out, and other social media platforms, you've been outspoken about your support for your fellow incoming representative, and of course condemning the ban. So, what was it like coming out of already, as you said, a tough election cycle, and then immediately be greeted by this on the Hill with your colleagues across the aisle when you are talking about wanting to work with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's highly disappointing. I mean, it's what Nancy Mace is doing is completely disgusting. If you look at her social media, I mean, she's obsessed with this topic. It's really ironic to me. And, it would be funny if it weren't so disturbing that, Republicans continuously try to say, talk about culture wars and woke culture and da 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 da. Then they are the ones obsessed with these topics. I mean, Nancy has spent the last week obsessed with the topic of bathrooms, and it's just ridiculous when there are so many legitimate issues to deal with. And it's a distraction. Like, I have not seen anything from her about actually solving any sorts of problems. She just is focused on bullying and honestly acting like a mean girl. And yeah, I will continue to stand up for Sarah. Sarah McBride is an incredible legislator. The way she has handled this, I can't even imagine what she's going through. I mean, she is being bullied, harassed, threatened, um, simply for being who she is. And she's doing everything she can to not let it distract from her priorities in Congress and the work that she has done and wants to keep doing.
Some of the other big news in the past few weeks, and something you've been also vocal about your opposition to, is Trump's cabinet picks and leadership picks. You alluded earlier to the Department of Education. I just want to know, what do you find the most concerning about his nominees? And if I could also get your reaction to former Rep. Matt Gaetz withdrawing as his Attorney General pick yesterday.
Trump, I think the appointments that Trump has announced thus far are incredibly alarming. It's almost like he is asking himself, who are the worst possible people I could pick for these positions, or the least qualified people, or the people with the most conspiracy theories about the topics that I intend for them to work on. And it's very disappointing. I think, as much as I disagreed with the policy ideals of some of his appointments, most of his appointments from the first term, they were legitimate candidates for the roles, right? These were people who believed in our institutions, who believed in democracy. They were experts on their issues, even if they had different viewpoints. This go around, that is not the case. I mean, suggesting that RFK Jr., who is a vaccine denier and has no respect for medical professionals, should be running public health in the United States is a disgrace, and it's dangerous. I mean, Matt Gaetz has dropped out, but I mean, it's just somebody who's being investigated by the Ethics Commission in Congress for sex trafficking of minors. I mean, come on. I just hope that Americans and the American people see this and recognize that it's important. Public pressure is important in these processes. That's true. Like, at the end of the day, we need people to reach out to their members of Congress, reach out to senators who will be responsible for these confirmations, and make it known that we want more qualified candidates in these positions.
Well, thank you so much. That's the end of my questions. Do you have anything else to add?
No, thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.